right. Hi, good afternoon or evening, everyone. It's 5:35 on November 19th, and we are gathered here to have one last voting session, both deliberation and voting for the community equity priorities. We are only going to focus on the remaining priority, and I'm going to share my screen. And for today's session, I'm going to offer a summary from my conversations and understandings of where we are, and then open it up for any further conversation or question, and then we will vote. How does that sound to folks?
Sounds good.
Wonderful, thank you. Welcome, Yesenia. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Sorry, give me 1 second. Here we go. Okay, can folks see my screen?
Yes.
Great. All right, I'm just going to make this a bit bigger. And so for tonight's vote, we're going to focus on, where is it? Sorry. Here we go. Community equity priority number 9, which is under the New York City Charter fundamental value. Our government ensures the condition of thriving for every person. So as a reminder, the draft community equity priority started out with to institute and appropriately fund trauma-informed community safety practices and responses to mental health calls that lessens the reliance on law enforcement. When we went out to communities, 82.8% agree with this priority. 5.7 disagree, 7.7 neither agree nor disagree, and 3.8 did not respond. What we heard from community members in conversations and what we read in their qualitative responses was that community members want a community-informed strategy to respond to mental health calls, that not every time are police officers the most appropriate, and more importantly, that the city has services for people experiencing mental health crises that we could expand, such as Be Heard, which is our co-response teams that allow for social workers and mental health counselors to lead the way in responding to calls. But we also have a children's mobile crisis unit. We have adult mobile crisis units. And we also have 988, which is both a national number as well as a number that's used here in New York City. So in our conversations, we've heard a few things, and I'm going to offer a summary and then just ask for people to jump in. One, we wanted, One, we wanted to make sure to uplift what community is requesting. Which aligns with campaigns that we hear all the time throughout the city, that mental health counselors and social workers understand those who are going through a mental health crisis. That is their profession. And so we should be, wherever possible and appropriate, really allowing them to respond to calls. The second is the language allows us to say less reliance on law enforcement, so that we are acknowledging that right now 911 operators do make the determination about whether or not, to my understanding, they make the determination about whether or not to send Be Heard or to send NYPD, and that there are critical questions that have to be asked really to ensure the safety and well-being of everyone. And so that process would continue. But what we want to uplift is that in cases where there is no risk of violence or decreased risk of like a decreased risk where further questions are needed, that further questions are asked so that there is a better assessment of the situation. And when there is no risk of violence, when someone needs help, and it is neither the person who is experiencing the mental health crisis or anyone around them that would be hurt, that a social worker or a mental health counselor may be the most appropriate or the best fit. We also heard community members say that people have different stages or degrees of crisis. And there are times and situations where a community member is able to contribute to what are some of the next steps to ease the situation and ensure that they get access to care. And so what we wanted to uplift is that even though you may be experiencing crisis, it doesn't mean that you cannot contribute to resolving the crisis and engaging with care, not only in the immediate short term, but also in the long term. And that when people are able to participate and contribute to the decisions of their care, they may be more likely to continue engagement with care, thereby preventing any future mental health crisis. So we wanted to recognize that a less reliance on law enforcement doesn't remove law enforcement or make a value judgment about that. It allows for the expansion and the inclusion of other services and responses that may not be perceived by the community as potentially being punitive. And that actually would increase engagement with community-based mental health services for long-term support and change. The last thing that I wanted to note is that we heard this across communities, and there is a commitment to recognizing and uplifting community expertise and community resources, and recognizing that because our second pillar as core is to increase community voice in government decision making, that really meant we not only needed to ground this CEP in a community-based approach, but we wanted to uplift the fact that all of the community equity priorities really should be leveraging the expertise, the value, the commitment, and the resources that are embedded in communities in a place-based approach. So we did include community-based approach in the top language, which we'll share after the vote. So that's the summary that I have based off of some of my conversations, but I wanted to open it up to the floor to see, are there any outstanding questions or comments? But before I do that, I want to read what the proposed language is based off of this summary and our conversation from yesterday. So the new proposed language that we would put forward for a vote is to use and expand non-punitive responses to mental health in all crises. These responses should rely less on police where possible. People should be allowed to decide or contribute to decisions about their own care. So that is the proposed language, and I'm just going to open up the floor. And for the core team that's on the call, please also feel free to contribute. We want all voices heard in this conversation.
I know that I wanted to discuss this point yesterday, and so I wasn't prepared to vote, but I just wanted to say that I appreciate the explanation and the context and the summary of what the community is seeking so that, you know, we can just be better informed. I just felt that yesterday we didn't have that time. We ran out of time to discuss it. So yeah, this makes sense to me. The language makes sense to me.
Thank you, Grace.
Yeah, same here.
Thank you, Mom. Adama?
Yeah, this language sounds better for me because when we say expand, it implies that they're already non-punitive. Like the way that we respond to emergencies it's heartbreaking. And so that's why I say we have to expand, because a lot of people don't know about the services that already exist for them. And so if we expand, then we can also offer advertisement, to share with the community so they understand what services are there for them. So I agree with this new language.
Thank you. Wonderful. So are there, oh, go for it.
I just wanted to say thank you for the explanation. That was very helpful. And I think this kind of also strikes like a balance, I want to say, like, I think where it also say these responses should rely less on police where possible. because we do know at times there's certain response that police does have to make because of the situation, right? So I think it does strike that balance with also with what it says before, use and expand non-punitive responses to mental health and all crises.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, Pesach, go for it.
No, I think we're all in agreement that with the new wording, again, with based on discussions that we had, that, it's inclusive of also relying on allowing the people to have their own health cares and their own treatments, being told and allowing them to contribute to their care. I think that's, a major part of it.
Wonderful, thanks. So thank you so much, everyone. It sounds like we're ready for a vote. So we will start. I'm just going to go by the names and the boxes on my screen. So I'm going to start with Torian and then we'll go to Wendy.
Yes, approved.
Wendy?
Approved.
Pesach?
Approve.
Imam Ahmed?
Yes, approved.
Grace?
Yes, proof.
Cristobal?
Approve.
Adama?
Approve.
And Yesenia?
Approve.
Wonderful, and I approve. That was it. That was our final CEP. Congratulations. I
Yeah.
will note one more piece for everyone. So we're done with CEPs, which is great. What I want to offer is just a reminder that what we wanted to include in sort of like the short summary that's going to go above, we have in multiple places a reminder of all of our types of engagement. We have a virtual share out that's up on our YouTube page. When we last looked at this language, we said that we wanted to make sure that community and anyone looking at the website knows that when we talk about New Yorkers, we talk about those regardless of their documentation, regardless of their arrival. So we did want that language in here, and I've updated that. So it says, CORE refers to New Yorkers and community members as anyone living in New York City, including immigrants, regardless of their documentation status. And then I also noted language around making and creating a community-based approach. So our paragraph ends with the city must center community-based approaches to advance equity. So those were the two additional sentences that we added to that paragraph. Wanted to make sure that you saw that. So, and I'm going to leave this up on screen and make this a little bit bigger so that people can read it. Torian, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I wondered if you wanted to document for the recording purposes the other votes that you received for folks commissioners who are not here.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. I almost forgot. So we did receive 2 votes via email. One from Commissioner Francesca Perrone, who was unable to make tonight's conversation. But we were able to receive a vote from her via email, and she voted to approve this exact language. And the same goes for Commissioner Amilcar Santiago. We wanted to recognize and also appreciate the time they took to vote via email. This is a new process, but we do want to make sure to record their vote. So thank you so much, Torian. And thank you to everyone who joined today's session.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay,
Linda?
so yes. Oh, Kirsten, you also joined. So Cristobal, will go to you, and then Kirsten, we'd love to just make sure that we hear your vote as well. Cristobal?
Could we have this finalized version? Could you send it?
Absolutely. Yes, I will send it immediately after this meeting. And we'll have, if you wanted to make edits to this top language, there's time to do that as well. We will just not be making any more language edits to the CEPs, but we're welcome to continue to take feedback on the top language. Kirsten, thank you so much for joining. Just so you know, we were, and I'm sorry, I can't remember at which point you joined, but we talked a little bit about this new proposed language, which is to use and expand non-punitive responses to mental health and all crises. These responses should rely less on police where possible, and people should be allowed to decide or contribute to decisions about their own care. How does this sound to you? How would you like to vote? You're on mute, just in case you're voting and we can't hear you.
Approved.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, so with that said, we are going to close out this session, and I'm going to stop recording.